Shading and highlighting glass still life drawings video. In this video, we're going to figure out, and we've done our drawing, we're going to show the transparency and the reflections of those highlights and those lowlights on the paper, inside the vessel, along the lips of the vessel, across the surfaces of the vessels, using the gray of the paper, your chalk, and your pencil. So you've already done the exercise where you did your spheres on the gray paper, and you're using the gray paper as one of your values, right? Now we're going to go in, and you want to do all your shading first and erase out any smudges before you move on to chalk. But we're going to find the darkest areas first, and that's typically any place where the glass is thicker. There are places that are going to, the edge of the glass is going to disappear and reappear, so there might be some places where you're even erasing out sections of it, depending on where the highlights are. But if you do really dark, heavy outlines, it's going to look like a wire sculpture or a cartoon drawing of glass and not like real glass. So I'm going to add my bevels into that crystal and erase out some of those extra lines in there that don't need to be there. So I'm just kind of cleaning it up. This is your last chance, right, to check for accuracy. Where does the white of the paper disappear and reappear? Where's the footprint? Okay. Now, the rules of shading, right? You always follow the contour. If there's a shadow down this side of this jar, I'm not going to shade it this way. My pencil never crosses or points towards the edge of the glass. If the glass is curved, my shading is curved. And for these light values on the scale, you're going to be moving back on the pencil, right? Don't shade up here like this. Move back halfway. And I'm going to start with the darkest values. Any place I see this medium gray, and I see it inside the bottom of the jar here where it's thicker. I see it in some of the ridges. I'm going to turn my paper just so I'm following the contour there. There's a little shadow down each side of that. The inside of that handle. Right? And you can even use the edge of the side of the pencil lead if you're using a wooden pencil. Okay, and those are going to fade into the gray of the paper, just like the shading faded into the gray of the paper on the spheres. So it's very subtle. There's really no place that there's going to be a solid black outline anywhere. Then I'm going to move on to my science beater here. There's a few shadows along the back edge. Again, it's subtle. And my eye, again, is on the glass as much as it is my paper, right? Try not to overdraw it. Find little shadows here and there, and only do one at a time. Because you can have perfectly drawn glass that we inadvertently flatten back out by putting shadows where they don't belong, by putting highlights where they don't belong. The pebbles have got quite a few darker shadows in there because they're a solid piece of glass. So again, I'm following the contour. There's a shadow underneath, and that's someplace else you can look for shadows as well, is on the surface of the paper. And notice my pencil's always going horizontal because the tabletop is horizontal. If I shade that in diagonally, it's going to look like it's a rocket lifting off of the paper. So tabletop shadows, the pencil stroke always follows the contour. Try to keep it smooth, don't get too scribbly. Again, I'm not even pressing on the paper, just letting the weight of the pencil Now this piece right here is pretty intricate, and I don't know that I'm going to waste the demo video time doing all the beveled edges on the outside, but I am definitely looking for, there are light, mediums, and darks in that. So if I turn the camera back, you can see there's 4 or 5 different shades of gray in there, right? And this is basically your whole scale in one object right there. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it. There we go. I'm going to start with the bigger sections. And notice how I'm using the end of this finger kind of as a stop to keep it from going past that line right there. There's a darker one up here. Do the same thing. All right, so now when you've got all your shading done, take a second to go in and clean up any smudges that you don't want, because those will flash through your chalk. Okay, now we're going to focus on highlights. Highlights for these in the classroom are going to be those bright streaks created by the light fixtures. Yours might be a kitchen light, it might be a window, right? But we're looking for where they show through on the front surface and on the inside. So these are the brightest whites, and I always look on the lip of the glass first, because a lot of times those pencil edges are completely erased out of those and replaced with the chalk. Now remember, you can smudge the chalk because you want highlights and lowlights in there. But there should be, to really make that transparency work, there should be a range of 5 darker values and at least 3 white values. Highlights, lowlights, and something in between. You do not have to color in the white of the paper. That's just going to make it a mess, and it really doesn't do anything to enhance that optical illusion of your objects being reflected. Again, you're looking at the glass, each little mark, look back at the glass and find the next highlighted spot. Excuse me. So I'm just going through and mapping those out. Now, in addition to those bright whites, there are also some low lights created by the windows, and those are smudged. That is halfway between the white and the gray of the paper. So you're going to find those as well, your second pass through. And you might end up with some low lights on the, or some reflected light on the paper as well. So again, it's that range that's going to give you the transparency. Sometimes there's, like that highlight right there is actually on the back side of the glass, not on the front side. These small, tiny lines of light, sometimes hitting it with the chalk and then blending it with like the tip of a Q-tip can be helpful. Like put it on a bigger area and then you can rub out the places you don't need it. Or create a low light with it in a small spot. There's a few little streaks on the inside here. They don't go all the way out. Now, if you get chalk someplace you don't want it, it will erase off, just like the pencil will erase off, and then you can rework it and start over. So don't freak out if you get chalk on top of your pencil. You can just erase that and wipe that off and rework it. Now, when you are completely finished, you want to take a photograph of it. You're going to turn it in on canvas. And if you want to save it, you can spray it very lightly, do a light misting of like inexpensive, cheap hairspray, something that doesn't have oil in it, and it'll actually glue it to the paper so that you won't get any smudges and it won't get ruined.